lost.
I'm just here to tell you that God's in the process right now of establishing some bridges.
Teaching the found.
We've got to be able to get a generation from one side over into the next.
With passion.
There is power. Power in the name.
And purpose.
I just had to make up my mind a long time ago that I'm going to do this come hell or high water.
Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
You embrace change, but remember, you constantly change the changeable while steadfastly clinging to the unchangeable. So we don't want to lose those particular things. But change and growth are what life is all about. Change, even if it's painful change, even if it is difficult change, it actually helps us to explore and ultimately get closer to reaching our full potential. But I'll tell you this, that too much comfort is actually dangerous for us. You may wonder, why in the world is something always going on in my life? And let me tell you that stuff going on in your life, you may not appreciate it when you're going through it, but really it helps to keep you on your toes. It actually helps to keep you healthy. Because too much comfort is dangerous. Because what will happen if you get too comfortable, you will lose your edge. And sometimes you'll lose your life. I've told you about a research project that was done by UCLA at Berkeley. They found that when an amoeba was placed in an ideal environment where there was just the right amount of moisture, just the right temperature, and they placed food there and water for the amoeba didn't have to work for anything. But guess what? The amoeba died. The amoeba died because it had no struggle. There must be a struggle. There must be a struggle. I mean, there's no rain without lightning and thunder. I mean, there are certain things. There is no progress that doesn't come through agitation. So there has to be something that shakes us out of our comfort zone. So don't ever expect for the things that happen to you in your life to be comfortable. Change is uncomfortable. That's why people recoil from it, because it forces them to change. We don't mind change, we mind being changed. People resist being changed. They just don't want to be changed. Now, let me share with you how our growth manifests itself through maturity. Say maturity. Oh boy, isn't that a buzzword? I think that Scripture associates at least 5 traits with spiritual maturity. And when I say spiritual maturity, I'm just talking just because we are rooted in God. I don't mean this ethereal that's out here because you're trying to be spooky and deep. I mean spiritual in that we are spirit beings led by a spiritual God. Here are 5 traits of spiritual maturity, of just maturity, just 5 markers. And this is to help us so that you can even measure when you're growing. You notice how people, they'll have growth charts, and there's a little scale, and they want to see how tall they are at a certain age, and then you grow to a certain age. And you ever go back and look at your pictures from elementary school and up through high school, or get a yearbook, and see how you've changed, how you've grown over your hairstyles and how your face and all of your clothes that you had on. You ever look back and just seen some of the changes that you've been through over the course of your life? So I want to give you these 5 traits that we associate with maturity. And number 1 is commitment to seeing things through. Commitment to seeing things through is a huge mark of maturity. Is commitment to seeing things through. Commitment to seeing things through. That's real maturity. It's when you can still remain committed to seeing something through even after the emotion has passed. Most people get excited in the beginning, and when the excitement wears off, they put the thing down, and you don't hear anything about it anymore. They fall off the wagon. Maturity, mark of maturity, is a commitment to seeing things through. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9 says, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for you shall reap in due season if you faint not." So he's trying to tell us, listen, he's saying mature now, mature. He says, don't get weary in well-doing. He said, I know you're going to get tired, but listen, don't give up. Don't faint. Because if you do that, you will certainly never get to what you want. Don't get weary. After you've gotten this thing started, you're going to get weary. It's time to make the donuts. You start off excited on a new job, and after you get in there, after 2 weeks, them in your excitement, and it's like you fumbling around trying to find your alarm clock so you can push the snooze button. But maturity, a mark of maturity, is commitment to seeing things through. Be not weary in well-doing. See it through. See your marriage through. Be not weary in well-doing. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know you're weary. You get sick of even seeing them coming. But listen, be not weary. Be not weary. Just keep looking straight forward. Don't give anybody any sign that you're dealing with anything at home. Just be committed to see it through, that this is not about my emotions. Too many people make those decisions emotionally, and your emotions are fickle, emotions fickle. But when you mature, it's like, I don't even care about how you feel, because see, I got to see this through. I told you I was going to whip you. Come on in here. I mean, back in the day, they didn't pay any attention to the fact that you were crying, and they would just tell you, you know what, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you, and then they'd go on and beat the tar out of you. I mean, but you know why? They weren't led by their emotions. They were mature enough to see that if I don't discipline you about this right now, there's going to be some other stuff later on down the road. If I don't nip this in the bud, if I don't put the fear of God in you right now, if I don't put respect in you right now, by the time you get 12 or 13, I'm going to have a little sassy mouse child rolling their eyes and telling me what they're not going to do, rolling their head around and putting their hands on their hip and coming back at me. So they are mature enough to realize that I've got to be committed, because I told you that if you did it one more time, and I am committed going there. They would send you out to the yard to get switches. And if you brought one that was too small, they would send you back. Number two, here's another great sign. These are scriptural signs here. Great sign of maturity. This is really a tough one here. Is controlling the tongue. And see, your first and your last words are the most important. Your first and your last words are the most important. In any conversation that you have, your first and your last words. Don't leave a situation on a bad note. Don't start it on a bad note, because you just offended the person. And when you start off with a person wrong, you cut off their hearing. That's what Peter did to the high priest's servant. He took out his sword and cut off his ear. He offended him. He didn't even know what he wanted. He just pulled his sword out and just sliced the man's ear off. He cut off his hearing. He cut off his hearing. Whenever you start with people wrong, because the person is like, you haven't even heard my side of the story yet. You're making assumptions about me, and you're prejudging me. You're not even giving me the benefit of the doubt to explain. Maybe there's a context to this thing that you don't know. A mature person will always hear the matter before he judges it. And so it gives us the ability then to control our tongue. You notice mature people, because they don't just fly off the handle and say anything that comes up in them. They learn how to hold their tongue. There's certain things that you realize, you know what? Your dad is not in a good mood right now, baby. This is not a good time. Just go on back over there and sit down. Go on back to your room. Your dad is not in a good mood. No, this is not the time. And they just know how to control certain things. I mean, some of them, they're not crazy. And they know when they get to that boiling point that if I say another word, I am writing my own death certificate, my own death order. And so they realize, I've got to be able to control my tongue here. They are not, again, controlled by their emotions. It's just a great sign of maturity. It's a great, great sign of maturity. If you've got a person who does not offend in their words, this is a perfect person. But perfect in the sense of mature. The word perfect actually means mature. It means mature. Here's the third thing. Spiritual trait, one of the 5 spiritual traits. First one is commitment to seeing things through. Number 2 is controlling your tongue. Number 3 is not complaining. Not complaining. Have you noticed that young people, children, they just complain, oh, it's so hot, oh, it's cold, When you get a certain age and you've been through a whole lot of different stuff, you don't deal with all of that complaining. You get a certain age and grandma has it burning up in her house anyway. It feels good to her. You know. You want to turn the air conditioner? I'll sit down, baby. Don't touch that. But not complaining. Make a note of Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2 verse 14. Do all things without complaining and disputing. The more immature the people are, the more they complain. Every time you ask them to do something that they don't want to do, they start murmuring, complaining. That's just a sign of immaturity. Mature folks know how to say, you know what, okay, I'm going to go on and do that. You know what, you didn't even have to invite me to come with you. You invite some people to come with you and they be complaining the whole time. You invite somebody else out of the do, dog, this potato's cold. The bread ain't even good here. What's that on the side of my glass? And let me just tell you, the more you complain, the more you'll have to complain about. There's something about it. The more you complain, the more you'll have to complain about. A huge mark of maturity. Let me just tell you, my wife and I, we've been out at restaurants, we'll notice old people, couples sitting there, and they don't say 2 words to each other. Sometimes, you know, I'm like, you know, we will be eating our food and they've been waiting a long time. They don't even say a word. They don't even say, I mean, they could say, well, what are they doing in the kitchen back there? You get a certain age. People who have the shortest amount of time, they have the greatest patience. It's amazing. It's amazing. But see, that's not an accident. That's called maturity. It's called maturity, where you learn not to just fly off the handle and lose your temper. Rarely do you find people in their 80s just laying on the horn. You know, come on, buddy, come on. Here's the 4th thing that is a huge marker for maturity. Patience. Patience. James chapter 1 verse 4. Let patience have her perfect work. Why? That you may be perfect. In other words, mature, entire, wanting nothing. Let patience have her perfect work. That means that God is going to have to put you in some situations where you have to wait, and there's not a blessed thing you can do about it. All you can do is wait. That's all you can do is just wait. You may as well learn to just indulge in some conversation, carry something interesting to read. You may as well, use your cell phone, call somebody, and make the best of it, because we're going to be put in some situations where you cannot control the speed at which you are serviced, the speed at which they process your application, or any of these particular things, and it will drive you batty until you learn patience. And we'll be saying, come on, God, hurry up, come on, hurry up. And most of the time that we think that we are waiting on God, God's actually waiting on us. And He's waiting on us to slow down, so that we learn how to enjoy life, because we are rushing through the very things. I know one of the guys that worked very, very closely with Dr. John Maxwell. He was so excited he'd come into work and he'd just walk right by everybody and go straight to his office and go to work. And Dr. Maxwell went into his office and he said, what are you doing? He was just pulling his papers out of his briefcase, getting things lined up on his desk. He said, I'm here to do my work. I'm going to work. And Dr. Maxwell pointed out to him, he said, you just passed by your work. You just passed by your work. They were the people that were in the office with whom he should have been having some interest of developing relationship and at least the human courtesy. If you're going to be in an establishment where you have to see these individuals every day, you may as well make some friends and be cordial and just say, good morning, how are you guys doing this morning? But he just walked in, lipped tight, and went straight to his room. He had to learn some real people skills, and it's just patience that you have to just learn to take time and walk slowly through the crowd. There's so much that you miss when you have to rush. And everything has us so that it's micro this, and we've got this, you know. I remember when the internet first came out, you know, and that stuff used to download, used to take forever. And then it got faster, and then faster and faster, and then they sell us with everything on speed, and express this, and 1 hour that, and this, you know, everything on being able to get it instantly. Instant this, instant that, instant the other. And we've got all of these things that have give us faster delivery of so many goods and services in our society today, and yet we still are rushed. And that rushing produces stress in us. And God says, I'm going to put you in some situations where you can't even get out of them yourself. You're going to be wanting something to happen for you, and you're like, God, I'm ready. Come on, let's make this happen. Come on, Lord, my gift is ready. Come on, put me on the platform now. Like yesterday, do it, kapow, open. Come on, let them know that I'm here. And God will just say, you know what? Just come in, pull your shoes off, take a let's just get to know each other. Let patience have her perfect work. Just let patience have her perfect work. And you learn to actually pace yourself in life, because if you're going to make it in this life, if you are running full throttle, giving it everything that you've got, you'll run fast, but you won't run long. And if you want to be able to go the distance, you have to pace yourself. You have to pace yourself if you want to be able to go to the distance. Thing number one that is a sign of maturity is commitment to seeing things through. Number two, controlling your tongue. Number three, not complaining. Number four, patience. Number five is continued growth. Continued growth. Talks about it. Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child. But as I began to mature, I put away childish things. See, that's a continual process. I put away these childish things. The Bible, it talks about it in Hebrews chapter 6. It talks about foundational, elementary things. And it says, and not laying again these elementary things, but moving on to perfection or to maturity. Moving on to maturity. You study that out in Hebrews chapter 6, and you'll see that we are not designed to stay in the same place. We are supposed to grow. So there should be continued growth that you have. Continued growth that you have in your own life. And we're growing so that it makes us a better instrument in the hand of God. That's something that Deepak Chopra said. He said, anything that is of value in life only multiplies when it is given. Anything that is of value in life only multiplies when it is given. And you think about whatever that it is that you want to see multiplied in your life, give it away to others. Whatever you want to see multiplied, give it away to others. Just remember this, God will never trust you with what you cannot give. He'll never trust you with time if you can't give time to anything. God won't trust you with money unless you learn how to give money. He won't trust you with love unless you know how to give it. He will not trust you with listening, where somebody will listen to you unless you learn to listen. Whatever it is, God will not trust you with what you cannot give. God will not trust you with what you cannot see others with and rejoice. If you can't see somebody else with it and then rejoice with them that do rejoice, God won't trust you with it. And thirdly, God will never trust you with what you cannot manage. He will not trust you with what you cannot manage. He won't trust you with what you cannot give. And he will not trust you with what you cannot see others with and rejoice. And so if you really want God to be able to trust you with certain things, you have to be able to see somebody else with it and rejoice in the God of your salvation. Just rejoice. Rejoice in God. Just rejoice in him. Rejoice in him. What did I tell you that the very first key to cultivating growth is? Embracing change. You have to embrace change, because we are constantly living in a changing world. Constantly living in a changing world. Here's number 2. Hone your skills and add to your knowledge base. Hone your skills and add to your knowledge base. Hone your skills and add to your knowledge base. Is the second key to cultivating growth. Hone your skills. Whatever it is your skill, sharpen those skills and then add to your knowledge base. See, there is a definite correlation between well-designed training and results. And yet many organizations put such little emphasis on training and professional education that they often cut that at the first sign of economic trouble. But training is an investment, not an expenditure. And so you have to, what I tell people though, if you're going to invest in training, you have to make sure that the training is practical and usable. Make sure that the training is practical and usable. How can you make sure of that? Ask people who have been through the education. Ask them who've been through the training. Ask them who've been through the seminar. Ask those who've read the book. Ask them, what is the single biggest thing that you gained from this training that has influenced or affected your life? Because I see people wasting time going to somebody's seminar telling you how to make money, and they were the only ones who made money. And if you sorted through all of the hype and all of the excitement of all of the hogwash that they are putting out, trying to get you to do something that, and their greatest thing was to sucker you into getting there, you ought to stop some of the people honestly, because you can't believe the folks that are in their promotional material, because their results are not typical. And remember, they have been chosen, handpicked, and perhaps paid to endorse that particular program or whatever it is that they're doing. But find somebody who has been through the thing and see, did you tell me one thing that you got out of it that changed your life, that made an impact in you? Tell me what lasting result. I don't want people to impress me that they've been through this course and that course. What difference does it make in your life? I mean, what good is it doing for you? How is it helping you? How did it help you to develop as a person? How did it help you with your family? How did it help you to become more valuable on your job? So you have to cultivate an appetite for learning, for training, and then persevere to finish the course. Now, it may be very, very difficult, but you can do it. And here's the great thing, is that you will grow in the process. May I just tell you this? For people that feel like, well, I'm not really academically inclined. I don't fool with books and seminars and all of that. I leave those to the smart people. But let me just tell you this. Albert Einstein is considered perhaps the most influential person of the 20th century. But yet many of you may not know that he was 4 years old before he could speak. He was 7 years old before he could read. And his parents thought that he was retarded. He was advised by a teacher to drop out of school. And they told him, they said, you'll never amount to anything, Einstein. Now, they did that to Albert Einstein. Isaac Newton, the scientist who invented the modern day physics, did very poorly in math. Touch your neighbor, said there's hope for you. Lucille Ball, the comedian from the I Love Lucy show, did you know that once she was dismissed from drama school for being too quiet and too shy? Did you know that Pablo Picasso was pulled out of school at the age of 10 because he was doing so poorly? And then his dad hired a tutor for him who gave up on him? Did you know that Beethoven's music teacher said of him, he said, as a composer, Beethoven is hopeless. Did you know Agatha Christie, the world's best-known mystery writer and all-time best-selling author, other than William Shakespeare, who's written of various genres, did you know that she struggled to read because of dyslexia? Did you know that Winston Churchill, the English Prime Minister, failed the 6th grade? You know what? I personally feel that schools should measure more than IQ, the intelligence quotient. I understand about IQ. I have a high enough IQ to know that what they're looking for, that it measures our ability to analyze, our ability to reason, our ability to think abstractly, and our ability to use language. That's what IQ basically measures. But you see, that's only one type of intelligence. There are other types of intelligence that are equally as important, in my opinion. For example, there's EQ, which is emotional intelligence. People with EQ, they have a lot of intuition, great deal of intuition, and they can read social situations really well. And they have an incredible ability to get along well with other people. But schools don't test for that. Also, there is something that is called spiritual intelligence, which actually represents our longing and capacity for vision, for value, and for meaning. That's SQ, spiritual quotient. It allows us to dream. And so there are some people that have high IQ, but they're not dreamers. Then there's a PQ, physical intelligence. Your body is naturally smart. You don't have to remind your heart to beat and your lungs to expand. Physical intelligence is also the ability to learn things bodily in a kinesthetic way. It's like a physical sensation, like hands-on or through touching. There are some folks that are absolutely great. They are brilliant with their hands. And so somebody might be stronger in IQ, but you might be stronger in EQ or SQ or PQ. One is not better than the other. They're just different. So the next time that somebody teases you, would you just remind them of Albert Einstein's words when he said, "Great spirits will always encounter violent opposition from mediocre minds"? Because they will. They will. And so I want you to always keep an appetite for learning, honing your skills, and developing knowledge in your own heart. Because there are so many things that we could have. I want to share this with you, and then I'm finished with by Edwin Markham. He said, "We are blind until we see in the human plan nothing is worth the making if it doesn't make the man. Why build these cities glorious if man unbuilded goes? In vain we build the work unless the builder also grows."
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop